will admit that this video just took a turn. Alan and I were all set up to sit and record what's been going on in the investigation with Rover. As many of you guys know from those of you who have been following along in our past videos, we were on a family vacation and our mini golden doodle, not even 3 years old, healthy as can be, we got a call from our Rover sitter saying that he had passed away. So I am going to update you in this video. It's just going to be in a little bit of a different style. You're sitting down and I'm with Alan. We couldn't even speak. And I know it's been a few weeks and yes, we are trying to like process our grief and get through it. But also, obviously, many of you know who have grief or have, you know, suffered from something very traumatic. We keep talking about how much this has felt very traumatic because it was so out of nowhere. We weren't there. As many of you guys have pointed out, there's so many questions. And we physically couldn't film. And then I felt like this like calling almost to go on a trip today to the Yellow Springs. I have never been there. It's in Ohio. It's about an hour away. And I felt like maybe Luca wants me to go to the Yellow Springs because I always wanted to take him there. And lately I've just been feeling like do things that you've always wanted to do. Like just do them because life is so short. And I know so many of you guys have dealt with death in so many different ways. As I mentioned before, I dealt with the passing of my mom. I actually made a documentary that's on my channel. I'll link it in the description if you want to watch it. It's called Cold Hands, Warm Heart, and Maria Shriver published it on our website because it takes you through the journey of a family suffering from a mother with Alzheimer's. Every time I deal with grief, I've noticed I become almost hyperactive where I process by moving. And a part of that's even just driving. And I just felt like take a drive. And I could tell Alan just like can barely talk this morning. We both grieve in different ways. And what's really nice is having him because it's like an emotional baton we keep passing back and forth. So he's gonna stay home, try to relax, and I'm gonna take you guys on a trip. And I'm also going to tell you guys what has been happening in the investigation, the response from Rover, just where we're at. There's a lot that I think you guys need to know. That's why I'm making this video. Let's try to bring a little bit of joy and a little bit of levity and go on a trip to the hot springs and make this vlog style. We have our Luca bear with us. For those of you who have watched my videos, you know this was his favorite little animal. Should we buckle him? Are we gonna be crazy right now and buckle him in? I hope this video makes everyone who's grieving or who has grieved just feel not crazy, because we're not crazy. I keep feeling like I'm crazy, but we're not. And again, grief comes in so many different ways and shows up throughout your day, but that doesn't mean you can't get through work. Like, we're trying to just get a little bit better each day, but every time we have to talk about this, which is all the time now with the company, it truly brings us back down. But let's go on a little trip and we're gonna chat in a different location. We have made it to Yellow Springs. I'm getting emotional because it reminds me when I took Luca to Hocking Hills. I want to find a spot to chat with you guys. But you know when you just keep getting triggered by everything because you're like, I just keep thinking he would have loved this. So I'm gonna try to not get triggered and we are going to find a place to chat and to give you the updates.
I lose my breath whenever I see you. You stole my heart, what is it that you do? My life was great till you added colors. Like the moon needs the sun, we don't care about the others. You set my world on fire. You're my heart's desire. I just wanna love you, just wanna hold you, just wanna be with you till we grow old. Please tell me you'll stay or take me away. I want you for myself every single day. You set my world on fire.
I purposely did not wear mascara today because I've already been crying so much. So I'm going to try to hold it together and not cry, giving you guys updates on what's going on in our case with Luca. I have notes right here. So if I look down, I'm looking at my notes. So we did want to just thank everyone because we had no idea if anyone was going to even watch our video on how we tragically lost our dog while he was in the care of a Rover sitter, and thousands of you did. Over, I think 1,200 of you have left us comments, and not just like, you know, I'm so sorry, but also just sharing your stories. And we just thank you so much for your support, for praying for us, for praying for Luca. Just so many sweet words of like saying that your dogs were waiting for Luca at the end of the rainbow. For those of you who have seen our story, and if you haven't and you feel compelled, you can watch the previous videos. I'll put them in the links below. You know that a part of our grief is that this was so traumatic. I want to make this very clear. Our dog was not even 3 years old, and he was completely healthy, had never been sick a day in his life before. So hearing the news while we're on a family vacation that he is unresponsive and then dead upon arrival to the emergency vet was obviously the most devastating news we've received as a couple. And there's a lot of questions, but we do have more things that have come to light, and I want to share with you because I think people deserve to know for their own sake. So we're still officially waiting on the autopsy results that should come in the next few weeks. However, we have been very disappointed by how Rover has treated us throughout this whole process, and we feel that it's important to share our story so you can have all this information before making your decisions about your pet care. So this was the first time we had used Rover for boarding. The only other time was actually the week prior because I was out of town and Alan was working. So we wanted to just test it out, and we had someone that was the, you know, highest rated, one of the highest rated, come to our house and do drop-in visits. For the week that we had to go on a family vacation, many of you say, why didn't you bring Luca? And I'm sure for those who understand just life, you can't always bring your dog to everything. I really wish we could have brought him everywhere, and we tried to bring him almost everywhere, but there are places that you can't necessarily bring your dog. So the thought process was Luca has always loved being around other dogs, does great around other dogs. He goes to a daycare once a week. Like many of you want to socialize your pets. He would be like running into the daycare, like they have a special collar that they wear, and he would know every time he saw the collar that he was going to daycare, so you could tell he was so excited to be there. Our friends had great experiences working with someone who had done Rover boarding, and their dog would play with Luca all the time, so we said, okay, this could be a great idea versus just boarding Luca at a daycare type of facility where he's around like 1 billion dogs all the time. We thought that might be a little too much, but a nice in between would be if he could go to someone's house who is top rated, who has a few dogs of their own. So that's kind of like a nice balance. And we picked someone who had high reviews. She worked at shelters and boarding facilities and all those things. And she had a few dogs as well that Luca could interact with. And we were very excited about that because we thought, oh, this is, 5 days that we're going to be gone. It would be nice for him to interact with other dogs, but not too many. I want to reiterate that Luca was completely healthy. Some of you have asked, oh, did he have vaccines recently? Because a lot of dogs have been dying from the vaccines. He had not had any recent vaccines. He was fully up to date on everything and completely clean, healthy bill of health. We are still waiting on answers from the autopsy. So stay tuned. If you want to follow along and you want to subscribe, we appreciate the support. But some things have come to light that have been really disturbing to us that we did want to share with the community. And one note that we forgot to mention in our first video, because we were literally like coming off the plane, it was like a day or two after that, and we were in so much shock just trying to wrap up the details in kind of a high level. We didn't want to get fully into everything, but we found out the day before that Luca passed that he had gotten sick at around 1 p.m. and threw up clear bile and remained lethargic the rest of the day. And then later we found out afterwards that he really wasn't being himself. But we did not receive a Rover report card. We did not receive photos. We just received this note at around 8:45, 9 p.m. So this was 8 hours after he first showed these symptoms, and the sitter had messaged us saying that he had thrown up, he was low energy, but she kind of reiterated, like, we're keeping an eye on it. We just want to let you know. I'll put the message right here, and definitely downplayed it. And we find out later that other things were downplayed as well. Again, we found out some of these things after our the dog had passed. So we were sent these photos after he had already passed. And any pet owner knows that you know your own pet. To me, I mean, make your own judgment based on these photos. But to me, he definitely looks sick. And I wish I had these photos beforehand, not after we find out that he passed away. He was also left alone to sleep in another room. The sitter saw him at 4 a.m. and said he looked fine. He popped his head up. She was using the restroom. And then at 8:30, when everyone woke up, they say Luca was unresponsive. He was foaming at the mouth, which are clear signs of a seizure. Again, Luca has never had a seizure before. We also found out later that, and this is what's really hard for me as a pet owner, especially someone who treated her dog as if, like, I would always joke with everyone and say, Luca was my child. I literally birthed him. And for those of you who know, like, you have that soul animal, we really did treat him and gave him the actual highest level of care. He had like a seatbelt safety harness seat in our backseat of the car. Like, every single thing we did. I wouldn't walk in certain places because I was afraid of danger. Like, I was a very protective mother, and we made sure he had the best care. So it was really hard to also hear that couple said that he seemed to have anxiety the whole time he was there and was skittish, and probably would have been better if we would have kept Luca at our house and done drop-in visits. Didn't necessarily fully relax when he was there, and that really is disturbing for me. We also found out that he like grabbed his leash and like walked to the door, and I guess that's a sign of like wanting to go home. So, you know, hearing as a parent that your dog seemed to have anxiety for 4 days prior to passing away is just very, very hard, because I didn't know that. No one told us that, and they said, oh, but it, you know, oh, we didn't think it was that big of a deal. But again, you know your pet, and I think there needs to be more communication between sitters and owners, and not as much fear of, oh no, they're gonna get upset. Like, sitters need to communicate with owners what is happening, regardless of whether you think they're gonna be alarmed or not. I really wish I would have known that Luca had anxiety. I wish I would have known certain things and been sent pictures. There's so much like self-blame, not trying to put the sitter down, but you know, like, you just keep spinning and blaming yourself, like, I shouldn't have picked this situation. Okay, let's keep going. Another thing that became really disturbing to us was that, this is something that I really want you guys to listen to, is that under Rover rules, the sitter told us that if something goes wrong, like if a dog needs emergency medical care, they aren't allowed to just take the dog or the cat or whatever the pet is to the vet or to the emergency room. They first have to contact Rover support to request access to the family's phone number. So they have to reach out to Rover first. Like, let's just say there's an emergency and your dog is like my dog and having seizures, potentially on the brink of dying. They have to contact company and say, oh, can I contact the family? Can you give me the number? And then they contact the family in order to go, because they need approval, because you can't, apparently they couldn't just take the dog to the vet, because then if the parent didn't know, it would be, you know, Rover would have to pay for it. So on this particular day, I had woken up at like 5 a.m. and thank God I had my phone on me. You know, you're on a family vacation. Don't always have your phone right there. And they said, can you call us? And I mentioned this in our first video. And again, it like is so upsetting, because I wake up so early with Luca all the time. Like, I would wake up at like 5 a.m. usually, and we'd go on a walk. Like, we had a whole procedure. So to think that, like, yeah, it's just hard knowing, like, they checked on him at 8:30. He was already dead upon going to the vet. So, you know, in your head, you're like, oh, if I was watching him, I would have seen him sooner. It's all the what ifs, right? Like, well, I should have done this. I should have done that. So the idea that a sitter can't act immediately in a medical emergency, even when time matters the most, like every second, every minute counts, is literally terrifying. And it's something that Rover needs to address, because in those moments, every minute matters. And in Luca's case, we didn't get that. We were less than 1 day. All we wanted was 1 day. I'm sorry. As you know the story, we asked the sitter to rush him to the emergency room, and the vet said in the parking lot he was dead upon arrival. When we saw Luca, we were literally coming off a plane and having to go see our dead dog. It was like unreal. His eyes were open, and
it wasn't even scary. Like, I held him. It was like as if he was still alive. Like, I know he wasn't, obviously. They brought him out on like a little gurney and everything, but it still is so like shattering to me. And I know so many of you could say it's been weeks, and we're not crying all day long. Like, we still have to continue moving forward and working through our grief. But I am still in shock and devastation, and so is Alan. And this is why emotional distress is a real thing. But more disturbing things have come to light of just how we've been treated. They refuse to tell us what they are doing to investigate. And we keep asking this every week, essentially. Like, what exactly are you doing? What are your findings? And they refuse because they say it's covered under privacy policy, but they never took an official statement from us. And what really took me over the edge this week is that the sitter's profile is already active again on the app while an investigation is supposedly underway. They also stated, which is important for everyone to know, that they do not pay for reports like necropsies, autopsies, toxicology reports as part of their policy, but we're really hoping and praying that Rover just has some compassion for our situation, because it's literally the worst situation that can happen. And we hope that they make an exception given the good health of Luca, and that since they say the report is paramount and crucial to their investigation and they're depending on it in order to proceed with the investigation. On their website, Rover Protect claims, we take pet safety seriously. We provide support through 24/7 trust and safety coverage and a dedicated team that helps resolve issues quickly and compassionately. But they told us that they will not reimburse for the necropsy or associated costs, which we had to pay for out of pocket. So let that sink in. The report that they require to determine what happened to our dog, they won't pay for, but they say it's paramount and crucial to the investigation. Here's something that's also really important for pet owners to understand. The veterinarian experts say that necropsy reports can take up to 4 to 6 weeks, and even then, they don't always yield a cause of death. So sometimes, especially in young dogs, the results can come back inconclusive. So when Rover says they can't act until they see the report, what I believe they're saying is we don't want to take responsibility. This, to me, is turning into, I believe, just such a serious issue for not only us, but for all pet owners out there. And I hate that are like the victims to have to go through this. But the reality is that Rover presents itself as a safe platform for not only your pets, but for also the pet owners and the sitters. But when something goes horribly wrong, the burden falls entirely on the family. We're sharing this because something needs to change, and the platform needs more transparency, more accountability, and more humanity. To all the pet sitters watching this, we know that not every pet sitter is irresponsible. In fact, there's a number of you guys on here who are saying, oh, I have 10 plus years experience. I love animals as if they're my own. And I love that, and I support that. And we love that you're doing everything to keep animals safe. This is not an attack on good sitters, but it's a warning for how the company that you're contracted through reacts when tragedy strikes, because no matter how great you are, if something happens on your watch, you might be left completely alone. And so might the family, and that's the real problem. Even if this was an underlying condition, the environment still matters. And that's really an important point I want to call out right now, because some people have asked, well, what if Luca had an undiagnosed medical condition? What if this was going to happen anyway? And here's the truth, that could be the case. But that doesn't mean that the outcome was unavoidable. According to veterinary neurologists and emergency vets, seizures and acute medical events can absolutely be triggered by environmental stress, high anxiety, or delayed intervention, especially in dogs who may have had an underlying sensitivity even if it wasn't yet diagnosed. For instance, the National Canine Epilepsy Foundation states that stress is a known seizure trigger in dogs, especially when paired with new environments, separation from their owner, or changes in routine. As I said, we were not aware that Luca was stressed pretty much the entire time. According to the VetStream canine seizure protocols, seizures can be exacerbated by environmental factors such as stress, overexertion, sleep deprivation, or illness. So why this matters for Luca is because we don't know yet what the necropsy will say, but even if there was an undiagnosed condition, it still matters, that he was not monitored closely, he was visibly sick for hours without immediate care, and the sitter admitted she couldn't take action without company approval. So whether it was stress triggered or not, we'll never know if a different environment, quicker vet care, or proactive communication could have saved him. And that's why we're sharing this, because what happened to Luca could happen to any dog and any pet owner, especially ones that don't have all of the information. Our friends are the ones who pointed out that when their dog passed of even old age, the vet sent them a card, you know, expressing their condolences, and Rover hasn't even sent us a card. In fact, I just feel like we have to continue to prove that we're the victims when the worst case scenario, which is your pet dying in someone else's care, happened to us. Okay, I think I'm officially spent, but we just want to thank all of you guys so much for your prayers, for sharing your stories, for your kind words about Luca. This is exhausting. This is draining. All we wanted was our dog to come home safe, and we didn't get that. And I get triggered everywhere I go. I literally hear scratches at the door, like even just being on this walk. I'm getting triggered because I want Luca to be here, and he can't. But I feel a strong calling to share his story, because this could be any of you. And I really hate that we have to be the ones to go through this to make a change, but that's probably how every parent feels who loses a pet or a child, and it's kind of like a deeper story, is you don't want to be the one that had to experience it, but if positive change can come from this, that's all we can ask for. So we love you. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to watch more of Luca's journey, I'll put it below. If you want to support the channel or whatever you want to do, I'll just add all of those notes in the description. Please send love to Alan, because he's the dog dad, you know. He was our soul, and we're gonna continue to keep you updated. We are praying that Rover does the right thing and works with us on this, and we're gonna continue to update the community. And I think it's also really important that one day at a time, we're gonna try to live as if Luca wanted us to, and tell the truth, and live in joy, and provide hope on this channel, because I know that's what he would want to. You know that little slogan that's like, be the person that your dog thinks you are. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us, but we're going to try to proceed in our videos, in our lives with joy and with hope, and we love you guys so much.
You said